Imagine a weed thriving in roadside ditches and concrete cracks across 3 different continents, capable of producing rich, authentic lather. This single plant yields enough natural soap to wash your hair daily for the rest of your life, completely eliminating your need for store-bought shampoo. Monasteries transported it across the map of medieval Europe. The textile trade constructed massive industries relying entirely on its power. Even today, the world's top museum conservators trust it to clean their most fragile, priceless artifacts. Yet the modern cosmetic industry successfully buried it anyway, way before anyone pressed the first bar of soap into a wooden mold, and long before scientists synthesized chemical cleansers in test tubes. Humanity relied on a foaming botanical that flourished right next to the streams where they bathed. Nobody had to invent it, it was simply discovered, and our ancestors utilized it for countless generations. If we look back at the earliest manufactured soap, it traces to ancient Babylon almost 5,000 years ago. However, that ancient soap was strictly formulated for scouring wool and laundering garments, not for human skin. The very first credible historical accounts of people applying soap directly to their bodies do not actually show up until the 4th century. What this reveals is that for the vast majority of recorded human history, mankind kept perfectly clean without any manufactured soap whatsoever. And they genuinely were clean. They purified their scalps, they scrubbed their bodies, they maintained incredible physical health. The solution they needed was literally sprouting from the earth right under their feet the whole time. During the Middle Ages, Dominican and Franciscan monks purposefully spread a very specific botanical throughout Europe. To them, it was a divine gift provided explicitly for human hygiene. By the late 16th century, this vegetation had become the go-to cleaning supply in households and artisanal shops all across England. It did not dominate because of clever advertising campaigns. It did not spread due to international trade deals. It dominated simply because it outperformed everything else available on the market. These medieval monasteries were far from primitive outposts. They featured sophisticated plumbing routed through stone walls, highly organized sanitation systems, and strict bathing schedules. To the monks and nuns of the era, external physical cleanliness was a literal reflection of internal spiritual purity. They had the means to use any cleaning technique known to their civilization, and they deliberately selected this botanical over all other options. But religious orders were not the only ones who recognized its power. The entire European textile sector engineered their washing processes around it. The skilled professionals tasked with cleaning, softening, and refining raw cloth were known as fullers. These fullers realized that boiling the roots and leaves of this weed yielded a gentle lather capable of cleansing the most fragile textiles without fraying a single fiber. The elaborate lace and ruffled collars worn by the English Tudor court were laundered in it. The luxurious silks passing through French trading houses were treated with it. Massive mills in northern France were deliberately constructed next to organized, cultivated rows of this botanical. They planted it intentionally. They harvested it continuously, season after season. In the days of the Roman Empire, it acted as a natural water softener in the grand public bathhouses. Up in the Swiss Alps, herdsmen relied on it to scrub their sheep before heading down to the market. By the 13th century, Italian monks realized it functioned brilliantly as a surface and tool disinfectant. And this next detail is what should really stop you in your tracks. The restoration experts at some of today's most elite, prestigious global museums still rely on extracts from this exact plant. As recently as the 1960s, European museums actively applied it to clean historical tapestries. We are talking about the most delicate, irreplaceable fabrics on the planet. Hand-stitched medieval embroidery from 6 centuries ago. Ancient, centuries-old lace that would literally dissolve on contact if touched by modern synthetic laundry detergents. These priceless historical treasures are safely entrusted to a humble weed that grows wild along the edges of English country lanes. Meanwhile, you likely wash your hair every single morning with petroleum derivatives pumped from a plastic bottle. This botanical goes by the name soapwort. Botanists know it as Saponaria officinalis. That genus name derives directly from sapo, the Latin word for soap, while officinalis translates loosely to of the shops. This refers to the hundreds of years it spent as a commercial staple in European textile workshops, where fullers relied on it every single day. You might also hear it called bouncing bet, fuller's herb, soapweed, or hedge pink. It is a perennial member of the carnation family. From early summer all the way through September, it produces clusters of delicate, fragrant pink or white blossoms that draw in butterflies and bees. It flourishes wildly across Western Asia, Europe, and North America. It was likely brought across the Atlantic by early Puritan settlers. Once it took root in the Americas, its underground root systems allowed it to spread autonomously, and it now thrives wild from the roadsides of New England all the way to the riverbanks of the Pacific Northwest. Chances are, you have walked right past it 1,000 times. You might have even yanked it out of your flower bed last weekend and thrown it into the compost pile, completely unaware of what you were holding. The secret to its power lies in its chemistry. Every part of the soapwort plant, the stems, shoots, leaves, and roots, is packed with natural organic compounds known as saponins. These are highly effective, genuine cleansing agents. Structurally, they are incredibly similar to the synthetic surfactants pumped into your household detergents and commercial shampoos. When you crush this plant and mix it with water, it yields real lather and substantial foam. It breaks apart grease and lifts dirt away from surfaces exactly like a manufactured soap would. The highest concentration of this cleaning power lives in the roots. By midsummer, when the plant is fully blooming, the saponin levels within those roots can hit 20%. Researchers have successfully isolated a minimum of 12 separate cleaning compounds just from the root system alone. Furthermore, scientific studies confirm that these specific saponins combat bacteria, soothe inflammation, and act as natural astringents to tighten and defend skin tissue. We are not talking about some old wives' tale or a mythical folk remedy here. This is the exact same chemical mechanism that elite museum curators trust to clean priceless historic artifacts that no factory-made chemical is ever permitted to come near. And soapwort was hardly just Europe's little secret. Virtually every populated continent on Earth discovered their own botanical equivalent. In India, a traditional botanical hair washing method has been practiced continuously for millennia. Women across the region cleanse their hair using a blend of 3 specific botanicals: Indian gooseberry, known as amla, the fruit of the soapnut tree called Reetha, and Shikakai, a thorny climbing vine native to the warm central plains. Every single one of these plants contains the exact same saponin compounds present in soapwort. Together, they generate a mild foam that pulls away dirt and excess grease without completely stripping the scalp's natural barrier. Modern lab tests have validated exactly what generations of Indian grandmothers already knew. These botanicals cleanse the hair with gentle efficiency, bypassing the harsh side effects of industrial surfactants. In fact, evidence of plant-based cleansers in this region stretches all the way back to the pre-Harappan era. That means people living in present-day Pakistan and northwestern India were washing their hair with botanical mixtures more than 4 millennia ago, before the Great Pyramid of Giza was even finished. Native American tribes also highly valued personal hygiene, yet they never relied on manufactured soaps. They turned to local flora packed with that same saponin chemistry. They crushed and lathered yucca roots in the deserts of the Southwest, dug up soap root from California's hills, and harvested small agave plants across the dry Great Basin. Different terrains, different botanical species, but the exact same foaming chemistry delivering the exact same clean. Over in Syria, Lebanon, and Turkey, soapwort root remains highly valued to this day, and not merely for washing. When crafting traditional Middle Eastern sweets like nougat and halva, it is soapwort extract that whips up the signature light, fluffy foam essential to their unique textures. The very same plant that can wash your hair is also a key ingredient in your dessert. From the saponin-rich horse chestnuts of France and Britain to the wild soapberry trees thriving across tropical zones in Central America and Southeast Asia, nature provided a solution. Soapwort itself blankets the temperate regions of the Northern Hemisphere. Across different centuries, different languages, and entirely different cultures, humanity found the same chemical answer. Yet somehow, in the incredibly brief window of just 2 generations, modern society threw it all away in favor of one synthetic molecule synthesized in a factory. That molecule is sodium lauryl sulfate, commonly known as SLS. If you walk into your bathroom right now and check the back of your shampoo bottle, you will almost certainly find it listed. It is the core foaming agent that drives the entire global shampoo enterprise. Prior to World War II, washing with plant-based cleansers was standard practice globally, but wartime shortages made the raw materials for traditional soap scarce. Factory-synthesized detergents stepped into the gap as an inexpensive alternative. When the war concluded in 1945, the chemical corporations refused to retreat. They heavily promoted these synthetic replacements. Not because they improved the health of your skin or hair, but because they were drastically cheaper to mass-produce in factories and much simpler to distribute worldwide in uniform plastic bottles. That one cold economic choice permanently altered the hygienic routines of almost every human on Earth. Clinical researchers have thoroughly examined the effects of repeated SLS exposure on human skin. Controlled trials reveal that SLS provokes measurable, irritating contact dermatitis at various concentration levels. In one study, a 1% SLS solution was left on the skin for 24 hours. Upon examining the tissue, scientists discovered the chemical had driven deep into the outer dermal layers, accumulating at concentrations proven to trigger inflammation. Astoundingly, chemical traces remained detectable in the tissue a full 7 days after that single application. One wash, 1 day of use, leaving a residue buried in your skin for an entire week. Sodium lauryl sulfate doesn't merely wash your head, it actively decimates the natural microbiome residing on your skin. That bacterial community isn't some grime you need to scrub off, it is your fundamental biological shield. When you obliterate it with factory surfactants day after day, you are tearing down a defensive ecosystem that took millions of years of evolution to build. Furthermore, clinical data shows SLS deposits heavily on the skin, pooling directly inside your hair follicles. Researchers pointed out that this chemical buildup can literally damage the follicle itself. They also documented widespread pore clogging at incredibly low concentrations of just 1 and 5%. The very liquid sold to you to purify your hair might be actively destroying the roots it sprouts from. Now, look at the laboratory results for Soapwort. Direct testing proves that this botanical extract is remarkably gentler on the crucial lipids and proteins in human skin. It achieves a deep clean while keeping the scalp's natural defensive barriers entirely intact. The weed those medieval monks praised as a divine gift is scientifically proven to be vastly safer than the industrial chemical that usurped it 4 centuries later. By 2025, the worldwide shampoo industry was estimated to be worth $38 billion. That colossal empire relies solely on you going to the store to buy a brand new plastic bottle of synthetic lather every single month. Another 4 weeks pass, another bottle purchased, another credit card swiped, the entire system is carefully designed around an endless loop of forced consumption. Soapwort, on the other hand, is perennial. Put it in the dirt once, and it sprouts back every single year without any effort. It multiplies through a network of underground rhizomes, expanding its footprint season after season. You don't need to fertilize it because it loves terrible, neglected soil. You don't need pesticides because bugs basically ignore it. You don't even need to water it beyond whatever rain falls from the sky. Most importantly, no one can patent it. It is a wild, free organism. A single planting establishes a lifelong supply of shampoo. A lifelong supply creates exactly 0 repeat customers. Zero recurring profit guarantees zero corporate funding, which translates to a $0 advertising budget. And when there is no marketing, you end up with 3 generations of society who blindly assume that hair cleanser only exists in plastic tubes on a supermarket aisle. It isn't a shadowy conspiracy, it is just basic economics. You can easily grow soapwort from a packet of seeds, or just grab a root cutting from a gardener who is probably desperate to thin out their patch. It thrives in blazing sun or partial shade, and couldn't care less if your soil is pure sand or dense clay. If you want to keep its aggressive spreading in check, just plant it in a large pot on your patio. A single starter plant transforms into a robust colony in one season. That colony becomes a perpetual, self-sustaining soap factory. When the flowers hit full bloom in midsummer, harvest the leaves and blossoms. Wait until autumn to dig up the roots, as that is when their saponin levels hit their absolute peak. Just chop up the fresh plant, toss it into a pot of boiling water, put the lid on, and let it simmer for about 15 minutes. Take it off the stove, let it cool down completely, and strain the liquid through a cloth into a glass jar. You are now holding a completely natural, foaming cleanser that is ready to use right away. Drop in a little peppermint or rosemary essential oil if you want a nice fragrance. The resulting foam will feel much softer and less stripping than what you are used to. That is exactly how it should be. It lifts away dirt without annihilating the protective oils your scalp works so hard to produce. Your hair might need a few washes to adapt to the new normal, but once it does, you will likely never buy a plastic bottle again. That fresh liquid will stay good for roughly a week at room temperature. To prepare for winter, simply lay the harvested autumn roots out on a screen in a warm room until they dry. Then stash them in a sealed jar. When you run out of shampoo, just boil a handful of those dried roots for 15 minutes and strain. Digging up roots one time in the fall gives you a full 12-month supply. After you wash with soapwort, try pouring a simple apple cider vinegar rinse over your head, 1 part vinegar mixed with 4 parts water. This instantly resets your scalp's pH and leaves behind a brilliant shine that no synthetic conditioner on the market can match. Your great-grandmother was almost certainly doing this exact routine. But remember, this botanical wasn't designed to be a standalone miracle product. Traditional hygiene wasn't about squeezing one magic liquid from a tube. It involved comprehensive care routines that modern corporations dumbed down into a single bottle and sold back to you at an insane markup. In India, hair care begins long before the water turns on. The ancient practice involves taking warm coconut oil and massaging it directly into the roots. This massage technique is known as champi, a word that actually traveled along colonial trade routes to become the English word shampoo. The oil feeds the hair shaft, while the physical massage drives blood flow straight to the follicles. The actual washing using a paste of Reetha and Shikakai only happens after the oil has fully saturated the scalp. Nourish first, cleanse second. The commercial shampoo industry completely inverted this sequence and convinced you that natural oils were the enemy. Using rosemary tea to stimulate the roots, pouring nettle tea over the strands for strength, or applying an egg mask for targeted protein. These aren't just quirky fads invented by wellness influencers on the internet. These are time-tested methods utilized daily by billions of people across countless cultures, long before a chemical conglomerate decided you needed a factory product instead. Now, a crucial warning if you decide to grow soapwort. This is an incredibly potent botanical. It works wonders externally on your hair and skin, but it is absolutely not meant to be consumed internally. The very same saponins that create that brilliant cleansing foam are toxic if swallowed. Keep it out of your mouth. If you have sensitive skin, rub a little on your inner wrist to test it before dumping it on your head, and never apply it to open cuts or wounds. The medieval monks who cultivated it respected its power deeply, which is exactly why it survived in their gardens for centuries. The global beauty industry is never going to tell you about this weed. You won't spot its name on the back of a slick ingredient label in any store. No major corporation is going to package it, because no brand can monetize a plant that grows freely in the forgotten ditches of Vermont, British Columbia, or the English countryside. Yet, it thrives along neglected fences, old railway tracks, and crumbling stone walls across the entire temperate globe. $38 billion cycles through the shampoo market every single year. Petrochemical surfactants are synthesized in massive plants, loaded into plastic, shipped across oceans on cargo freighters, stacked under harsh warehouse lights, scanned at the register, and washed right down your drain, only for you to repeat the cycle 4 weeks later. All the while, the true solution is growing within walking distance of almost every human settlement in the Northern Hemisphere. It makes real soap. It has always made real soap. And it will continue making real soap long after the final plastic shampoo bottle shatters in a landfill and the last synthetic sulfate molecule floats downstream toward the sea. The monks understood it. The textile fullers understood it. Museum curators still understand it today. And your great-grandmother probably understood it too. The only question left is, are you going to plant it?